This morning, I'm going to be looking at the 18th chapter of Matthew. Before I begin that, I just want to share that this man had gone to see his doctor, and this doctor and him had been high school classmates, and they had known each other for years and such. And this man had gone to his buddy to be as his doctor for years, and he walked into the exam room and sat and waited. And when his friend, the doctor, came in, the doctor could tell right away that there was something wrong. And so he confesses to his doc. He says, I just don't feel like myself. I'm tired. I'm run down. I just feel achy. I just don't feel like myself. And the doctor confessed, too. He said, you're just not yourself. Your happy self. And there's got to be something wrong. Let's take a closer look. So he goes through examination. And the doctor says, I'm going to take some blood samples, have lab come and do that. And then what I want you to do is I'll get on this right away and come in tomorrow. I know you don't have an appointment. Just I'll work you in. Come in tomorrow and we'll get to the bottom of this. So anyway, the man says, Doc, level with me. We're friends. If I'm dying, I want to know. So he takes off and goes, and he just can't sleep. He's just worried that something is really wrong, especially if his buddy recognized that he's just not himself. So he ends up pacing all night long, and then finally he gets up early in the morning, and he's sitting on the stoop at the doctor's office waiting for the doctor to get there, and the doctor arrives and says, Doc, please tell me what's wrong. And he says, I can't. I don't even have the results of your test yet. Come back and after lunch and we'll sit down and we'll go to my office and we'll talk about this. So noon comes and he comes in and the nurse knows what he's doing. The nurse took him right back to the doctor's office. He finds a comfortable place to sit down and wait for the doctor to come in. Doctor comes in and he's got his hands full of pills and the man says, what do those mean? You got pills. And well, I've got these 3 pills I want you to take. First, there is this blue pill I want you to take first thing in the morning and make sure that you wash it down with a big glass of water. And then right after lunch, I want you to take this green pill. And I want you, right after lunch, I want you to take a pill and then make sure that you wash that down with a big glass of water. And then before you go to bed, what I want you to do is take this red pill. Now, this red pill must be washed down with a big glass of water. Do you get that? And the man says, yeah, I know. I get it. There's 3 pills, and I need to make sure that I take them 3 times a day. But tell me, what is it? What's wrong? You're not drinking enough water. Well, life sometimes is a simple fix as that, as sometimes we're just not drinking enough water. As we get into our book study, what are we fighting for? As basically a diagnosis for our church. It's a spiritual problem, like a health problem right now. As we're struggling as a denomination to find our way. And the writer of this, Tom Brick, the writer of the book, gives to us more of a prescription of having more faith, hope, and love as a part of ourselves, and asking ourselves, what are we fighting for? This morning, I want to talk a little bit about this important passage from Matthew. If another member of the church sins against you, go and point out the fault when the 2 of you are alone. If the member listens to you and you have regained that one, but if you are not listened to, take 1 or 2 others along with you, so that every word may be confirmed by the evidence of the 2 or 3 witnesses. If the member refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if the offender refuses to listen even to the church, let such a one be to you as a Gentile or a tax collector. Truly I tell you, whatever you bind up on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Again, truly I tell you, if 2 of you agree on earth about anything you ask, it will be done for you by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them. Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them. This morning, as we look at all that is going on in our nation and stuff, it has been a real struggle to watch television these last 2 weeks as it's been focused on the two hurricanes, on Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma that now is bearing down on Florida. This morning's paper, the front page had the picture of the long line of bumper-to-bumper traffic filling all of the lanes of people wanting to escape the horror of the 150-mile-an-hour winds, the driving rain, and the sea surge that is supposedly coming. Walls of water that will be pounding the coast. As many are describing, as you listen to the newscast, they are describing it as a very major disaster, shown in comparison to Hurricane Katrina, which there were many, which was considered the most deadliest of all the tragedies that have hit the United States. And they are calling it apocalyptic, which as a pastor, when you hear these words apocalyptic and talking about it being in biblical proportions, they're really talking about these images that we have of such things as Noah and the ark, water that will not stop coming, the pouring and the dripping of the rain that continues as trillions of gallons of water. When the newscaster was trying to demonstrate how much water was dumped on the city of Houston, he stood and they put this imaginary line of water that was up to his chest of water that had been dumped just on the city of Houston. One after another, both are expected to be the most expensive natural disaster in U.S. history. These hurricanes, one after another, are supposed to be the most expensive of the natural disasters in our history. Many have and many will be losing their lives. Those people that are holding out, thinking that they can take it, but we know that when all the water is washed away and they begin knocking on the doors, they'll find those who die in their homes thinking that they can wait it out. Many thousands are leaving and then returning and finding that their homes and their businesses are destroyed. And it's times like this that we need to take heart and remember the words that I just read to you. Where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there I am in your midst of them. Matthew's gospel gives to us an incredible promise in the sense where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there. And think about it. Yesterday I shared in a wedding, and as we gathered to the altar area for the couple to begin sharing their vows with one another, and we shared their prayers. It is when 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, Jesus was there. When a family bows around their dinner table and as they hold hands and begin to say their blessing, Jesus is there. When a pastor holds the hand of somebody at the bedside as they're dealing with either illness or dealing with death, Jesus is there. So this morning I want to ask you this question. Do you want to really know where Jesus can be found? And I want to let you know in on a little secret. All you need to do is get together with another follower of Jesus for just the reason of studying the Bible or worshiping in their name, lifting up prayer concerns and the prayers of others, or binding the broken heart, or holding the hand of somebody who is ill and needing comfort. And Jesus will be there. Jesus will be there. I guarantee it. We are not alone. It is very easy to be in despair when you have no shelter from the storm. Despair can be overwhelming. In Psalm 69, it begins by, "Save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck." This is almost appropriate for those who are living through these hurricanes. "Answer me, O Lord, out of the goodness of your love. I sink in the mire depths where there is no foothold, no place to stand as the waters continue to rise. In your great mercy, turn to me. A plea for hope, a plea for help. But so how easy it is to lose hope in the midst of life. And one of the things that changed what I was really going to be preaching about this morning was watching on the news as a survivor of the floods in Texas was being interviewed by a reporter on air, and the man was desperately looking for his father. The reporter shared that this man had walked 12 hours in the darkness going to Rockport there that had been devastated, leveled by Hurricane Harvey. And as the reporter was speaking to them, you could hear in the tears and the exhaustion and the hopelessness that he had, that if my mom and dad are out there, please let me know. He was using the audience as an opportunity, as he was choking up, as an opportunity because the cell phone lines have been down and he was looking for his parents in the midst of what was left of Rockport. He said, I just lost everything. Everything I worked for, everything. And the only thing I've got now are the clothes on my back. You could tell he was visibly shocked. But in desperation, he was looking for his mother and father in the midst of the rubble there at Rockport. We are all an overnight away from a disaster that could take all the hope out of our lives and suck all the life out of what we have, and to feel as though we are left alone in this world. You can tell me all day long about the stories of Job, where all was taken away from Job, and as he watched it, he still remained faithful. But when at the end of the story, he is given a new life, a new wife, a new land, new crops, new livestock, new children. But it doesn't return those that were lost, his family and his children. You can recite for me the words from Ecclesiastes, for everything there is a reason under heaven. A time to live and a time to die, a time to love and a time to hate. But that still leaves a world that is very cold and lonely in a place in our lives. So let me say this to you this morning. Ecclesiastes also says very, very delightfully, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you may die. And I don't say that just as a defeatist, thinking that we're all going to die, so let's just all have a good time. I say it because it is the way of an Old Testament book in Ecclesiastes, what it's meant to enjoy life while you have it, and realize this. What Job did not have, you and I have, and that is a Savior named Jesus Christ. What the preacher and the writer of Ecclesiastes did not have and did not know, you and I know, is that we have a Lord whose name is Jesus Christ, who was promised, who will not abandon us. He will not abandon those whom he has died for. These last few nights when I've been walking our dog, and it has just been gorgeous. It has just been gorgeous to look up at the stars. And the scientists tell us that there are many more stars in the sky than there are grains of sand in all of the beaches in the world. And yet, as we look at the stars so far apart, they're mostly empty space. That's why they call it space. As you can imagine, they are so far apart that they don't collide very often. And it is just incredible to see the stars and to look at them and then look at yourself. How small we are in this vast universe. But consider the amazing ability that your brain has to ponder about the significance of the stars in relationship to our lives. Think about how your eyes are able to look upon the beauty of creation. And think about the lungs that we have that are able to provide us life-giving air. And to think about our own digestive systems that allow us to take in delicious food and transform it into energy. This week, as I was visiting with Mark Fransdahl, he made one accomplishment. And I'm sorry I said this, but I'm going to get in trouble today. But he said, this has been a good day because I pooped for the first time. I'm sorry, but for one to realize how far you come, and that is a big step. It is almost too magnificent to imagine, for us to imagine that this world and all that we live in was just an accident. An accident. I really do not believe that it was an accident. I believe that this world was designed by someone who intended it to be surrounded by love and care. Now, I wrote this before yesterday's ball game. But there are two professors from Iowa State. I was going to underline that they were from Iowa State. It's an astronomer and a mathematician, and maybe you have read their books about creative design, where they talk about how the odds of this planet being in this certain place at a certain angle during the seasons of the year that life is able to exist right here. And the mathematician got it down. I need Dave Kofed and I need Lindsay to say, now what is 1 in 10 to the 40th thousand power? That's a big number. And what I got into that, it's very improbable that this could merely happen by an accident if it hadn't been designed and planned. So for me, what that says is that we are not alone. And it is in knowing that we find strength for our journey in this world, wherever that journey may lead it. We draw from the knowledge that God is with us. We have it in the air that we breathe, the food that we eat, the water we drink. All are necessary for life, but that is still not enough for an abundant life, a life that has meaning, and that we need meaning. More than that, we need companionship. We need love. We need that which is that more than that raw material. We need that provides for us. We need more than what bread and air provide for us. We need love. When I served in Gladbrook, I was a member of the volunteer fire department. And we were so appreciated by the community at that time that a couple of the fathers of the community went together and they bought us all new helmets and new boots and new uniforms to wear, pants and coats to protect us, because what we had was about 20 years old and probably wouldn't stand up to a match if you put a match up to it. But they wanted us to remain safe. We were called out to fires and to accidents. And what that was and what I discovered is that no matter what we wear, there's no way that we can be protected by the disasters and the problems of that we face in this world. There are millions of ways that tragedy can come, and there's no way of avoiding or I'm sorry. There are philosophies you can embrace. There are religions that you can adopt. There are gurus that you can follow. But what happens when tragedy strikes and death comes knocking at your door? We're all a heartbeat away from disaster. Do they provide help when you are tempted, comfort when you are hurting, strength when you are feeling you can't carry on? Those who follow Christ know that they can, and that Christ can give him help and comfort and strength, that we are not alone. I struggle sometimes. When I grew up, I stuttered. And when I got older, I was able to control that, except when I am tired and exhausted. And this morning, I'm really struggling in just trying to put two words together to make sense. I want to tell you about somebody. I was visiting with Carol Dick, and Martha Nation, you all know, is over 100 years old. In my congregation in Nevada, we had a woman by the name of Ethlyn Stallman, and Ethlyn lived in her home until she was 104 years old, and then she finally went to a nursing home where she could get assistance, but she was still very active and alive, and up until the last day when I went to go see her in her dying moments, she still remembered me as Pastor Steve. She lived to be 106 years old. One of the things that I did with my confirmation class every year was to go visit Ethlyn. Ethlyn lived just a couple of blocks from the church, so we would walk down to Ethlyn. I'd make arrangements for us to be there. And bless her heart, even at 100 years old, she would bake cookies that were out of this world and have milk for every one of those kids. She wanted to know how many was going to be there and such. But we would gather in her living room, basically around her feet, as she would tell what it was like. This is a woman that had seen many wars, who had lived through the Depression, who had struggled with the loss of children, the loss of grandchildren, who have suffered many griefs and the grief of her husband. She had 50 great-grandchildren. She was an incredible woman, incredible one of spirit, and we'd let the kids ask questions about what it was like when she was a kid, and she'd talk about, not having running water and no electricity, and the kids were just dumbfounded about life without those kinds of things that we take for granted. She talked about the day of seeing the first airplane and also hearing and seeing the first automobile. So it was an incredible time for these kids to visit. And then I said, Ethlyn, would you tell us about what it was like when you were their age and you were going through school or just church through your confirmation? And she said, well, we didn't call it confirmation, we called it catechism. And what we had was this book that we were to memorize. And we spent time memorizing that. And one of the things that I had to memorize, she'd say, was the 23rd Psalm. And I recite that every night before I go to bed. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And she would then begin reciting that in front of the kids. A witness of faith of one who had walked through much in life that were not always happy moments, but one who walked with her Lord that knew that she was not alone. We know that we are not alone, and we know because of that, we know that we know Jesus is walking with us in the days of our lives. But the one place where you can experience Jesus is in this very room, because it whispers of God. You see, when we remodeled this room, and when it was first designed, it was designed to automatically focus your thoughts and your hearts upon God. So as you come in, it whispers of God. It's in the cross, it is in the focus of what this is all about, is in the pews, and knowing that as we gather together as a church. But more importantly, it is in the singing of the hymns. It's in the scriptures that we read, and sometimes it might be in a few words from the pulpit. But it is a reminder that in the midst of all that we face in life, whether it's the despairs that we have, the troubles that we face, it is the things in those moments that we feel we are divided, we have one thing that holds us together, is that we are not alone, and that Christ is with us. And the best thing of all is that when we leave from this place, Christ goes with us. So I just pray that you carry Christ with all that you see and all that you meet today, that they might know the love that has brought you here this morning, and to be reminded, wherever and whatever is going on in their life, that they are not alone. Let us pray. Gracious and holy God, we come to you this morning asking for you to help us learn the great lesson in life. One that we learned early in our age, that Jesus loves us, this we know. Lord, it is in that Jesus came and lived and died and that he died for those who are in need of your love. So may we be an extension of that love to share that love with others. For wherever two or three are gathered together, he is there. Amen.